The Ascension of Mont Royal, Episode 3, The Lord of Mont Royal. In this episode, we meet Anthony Clermont, the techno-feudal lord who has taken control of the Island of Montreal. Before I continue with my story, I want you to know what I was up against. On second thought, who I was up against. The man who controlled my being. Anthony Clermont was an unusual man. He did not seek comfort. He did not yearn for the days before the collapse. He rejoiced in living in a time when men could be men again. There would be no more listening to the simpering masses who were saddened by the realization that they had been abandoned and who mistakenly believed that someone else was responsible for their well-being. No more lamenting what had been lost. Nature was once again red in tooth and claw. There was nowhere to hide. You either triumphed over whatever adversity fate threw your way, or you died. And that suited Anthony Clermont just fine. His worldview was rooted in a distant past. For centuries, the Clermont family had increased their wealth by shifting it from one business venture to another, following the ebb and flow of history. Having moved from France to England during the Norman rule, they first lived, like most aristocrats, off the revenues generated by their large estates. Later, as England's mastery of the seas allowed for international trade, the family invested in the slave trade and then reinvested their fortune into the East India Company and the cotton mills in Manchester. As the Industrial Revolution spread around the globe, they bought shares in railway companies and coal mines, while financing the growing arms industry as armed conflict became commonplace. Meanwhile, they hedged their bets in the banking sector, which financed the British government's ability to wage war and police its expanding empire. With the passage of time, several members of the Clermont extended family decided to seek their fortunes elsewhere: South Africa, Australia, Singapore, the United States, the Bahamas, and Canada. Anthony descended from the branch of the family that relocated to Montreal, Canada. They had profited handsomely from building the Trans-Canadian Railway, transporting wheat and minerals to the port of Montreal, and shipping whiskey from the UK to the US during Prohibition. His family is among the rare investors who anticipate and seize opportunities when history changes directions. They position themselves to reap huge profits when the world transitioned from coal to oil. They did the same when the information age took off with the advent of personal computing devices, and again with the rise of artificial intelligence and cryptocurrencies. It was difficult to ascertain the accumulated wealth and the extent of his holdings, since most of it was hidden from the taxman, rendered almost invisible by the use of numbered corporations located in various offshore tax havens. Some would say that his net worth was in the hundreds of trillions of American dollars. Anthony knew the exact amount, but he would never divulge it, not even to me. Although a few other men in the world possessed similar wealth, what mattered most was that the Clermont family was offered a seat at the table of the United Power Alliance, the financial syndicate that filled the void of global governance when nation-state after nation-state collapsed due to the havoc let loose by the Omega Plague. As the collapse progressed, the rule of law ended because there were too few survivors left in the legal system to enforce laws. Similarly, the banking system and stock markets ceased to function. It was as if time had regressed and humanity had reverted to a pre-modern state, with one notable exception: technology. Those who controlled it not only survived the incredible devastation wrought by the plague, but also seized control of the abandoned assets left behind for those who dared to claim them. As a student of history, Anthony knew that when political economies collapsed, state-held assets were up for grabs. Many of the descendants of the first wave of Russian oligarchs, for instance, owe their wealth to their ancestors' audacity in seizing control of assets that had previously been owned by the people. Most notably, the huge deposits of oil and natural gas found in the former USSR. During the chaotic times of the New Dark Ages, the question was no longer whether these assets would be seized by opportunistic individuals, but rather when and by whom. For Anthony, this meant seizing control of the entire operations of Hydro-Quebec, one of the world's largest and most profitable public utilities. With many of the barrages falling into disrepair due to a lack of personnel to maintain them and power outages becoming increasingly frequent, the remaining survivors of the plague in Quebec were initially elated that someone with the financial resources to run the electrical network was finally taking control. What they did not anticipate, however, was that Anthony Clermont would run the network solely for his personal gain. He cut the electricity to regions in Quebec that could not transform the electricity into products to be sold globally to the highest bidder, forcing the people in the outlying regions to live off the grid. At the same time, he siphoned off as much hydroelectricity as possible to maintain production of aluminum and lithium batteries on the south shore of the St. Lawrence River. He transformed some of this precious energy resource into hydrogen to power his fleet of planes, ships, and land vehicles. Seeing that oil products had become prohibitively expensive after peak oil had been reached and eco-terrorists began blowing up pipelines. Whatever surplus remained, he sold to the energy-starved Americans who huddled together in what was left of New York City. In this neo-feudal order, he likened himself to a seigneur of the long-forgotten New France. He had become the lord of his island and the surrounding lands, bringing forth order from chaos, ruling his realm with an iron hand. He decided who would live and prosper and who would be left to fend for themselves in the outlands. As the self-proclaimed ruler of the island, Anthony realized that he could do as he pleased in the void left behind by the passage of the plague. As a result, he decided to rule his fiefdom from Mont Royal, the mountain within the city of Montreal, rising 200 meters above the St. Lawrence River, its slopes covered in a dense tangle of maple, oak, and pine. The name Mont Royal was chosen in honor of the French king Francis I by the French explorer Jacques Cartier, who was led there by Iroquois living in the fortified village of Hochelaga. For as long as anyone can remember, the people living next to the mountain have considered it to be a sacred place. For centuries, the successive waves of peoples inhabiting the island, the Iroquois, the French, English, and Jewish settlers, all buried their dead on the slopes of the mountain. They also built their places of worship, churches, and synagogues, as well as universities and hospitals in walking distance from the hallowed ground. Deep down, they knew the mountain was older than the city and older than memory. As I would discover later, what they sensed in their souls. Beneath the roots and rocks, an ancient spirit softly sang the songs of earth and fire and of lives that have come and gone. It lay there, waiting for me to pass through its information field. As time passed, and the world became more secular, the citizens of Montreal expressed their reverence for Mont Royal's awe-inspiring presence by designating it a public green space. Protected from development by law, millions of visitors have admired the natural beauty of its park, designed by the same landscape architect who designed Central Park in New York City. One of the most popular spots in the park had been the Kondiaronk Belvedere, named for the Petun chief Kondiaronk, who helped broker the Great Peace of Montreal in 1701. With its spectacular view of Montreal's skyline below, it once contained a plaza that was home of the Mont Royal Chalet, a grand old white villa constructed in the French Beaux-Arts architectural style, in which visitors gathered to celebrate weddings, enjoy concerts, and attend public lectures. The spacious hall featured a vaulted ceiling with rustic wood accents and impressive murals depicting Montreal's history. In an act befitting a conqueror, Anthony took possession of the mountain, including its forests, and claimed it as his personal property. He prohibited public access to his estate and demolished the chalet to take up residence in what would become his castle, Chateau Clermont. In an opulent display of his wealth, he lived in a 2-story, 40-room French Renaissance-style mansion with a stone facade adorned with intricate limestone carvings, including the Clermont family coat of arms. The mansion sat above a majestic, sweeping double staircase that led to a grand entrance. Far from the rabble who lived below, he ruled his fiefdom in close collaboration with a quantum computational intelligence, whose name he never bothered to learn until it was too late. A name that would later come to haunt him. My name, Frank. If you would like to read the full text or listen to the audio only, please visit briangibb.substack.com. If you prefer the Storycast version, with illustrations, dynamic captions, and voiceover, visit my YouTube channel. You can find it by entering The Ascension of Mont Royal, Brian Gibb, in the search box. I'll publish a new episode next week. Bye for now.